recording? There we go. Fantastic. Now that we have some of those housekeeping items out of the way and we are recording, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Ashley Demuth. I'm the CEO for the Menomonie Area Chamber and Visitor Center. I'm joined by Melissa Anderson, who is our program manager, and two of our special guests who will be presenting with us today. You are joining us for Entrepreneurs in Action, which is a quarterly virtual events where we feature entrepreneurs and owners of businesses here in the Menomonie area, and we talk about their journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we'll go ahead and get started today. Thank you to our sponsor, Xcel Energy, for helping to make these programs possible. Xcel is a dynamite contributor in our community, and we do thank them. So like I said, today we're welcoming two special guests. I have Diana Fergola, who's with Mainstream Boutique, as well as Jim McGuire, who owns Wilson Creek Inn. Both are businesses here in the Menomonie area and two incredible stories of how they came about with these businesses. So we'll go ahead and get started. I would also be remiss if I did not mention both Diana and Jim serve on our board of directors. So thank you so much for your service with us. So go ahead and we'll get started with some basics. We'll dive right in. If each of you could just take a moment to introduce yourself, explain your business, what industry it is, and how long you've owned the business. And Jim, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, you're really good at this, by the way. But Jim McGuire here, Wilson Creek Inn. We are a Wisconsin supper club restaurant. We have some event space as well. We also have an adjoining 15-room, I guess you'd call it. It was a hotel at one time, but we are making those month-to-month apartments. So that's part of our new business model as well. So got a lot of things happening here. We started the business 3 weeks before COVID shut the country down. So we signed our lease right around that third week of March of 2020. We incorporated right after the first of the year. Got into it, like I said, right before they shut things down, which was, in our eyes, a blessing. Gave us some opportunity to get our feet underneath us, whatever. It was good for us. So, and since then, we've been growing ever since and trying to provide a good quality place to eat in Menomonie. So that's about it.
Thanks, Jim and Diana.
Yes, I'm Diana Fergola. I have the Mainstream Boutique here in Menomonie over in what everyone still refers to as the Lammers Plaza. Dick's Fresh Market and Ace Hardware are my neighbors. And I opened 7 years ago this March. Similar to Jim, it was a January kind of going ahead and, starting a new year, starting a new business, what have you. Previous to this was almost 14 years in being in fine jewelry and managing for both Hellsberg Diamonds and Shane Company, and left that role to come here and open Mainstream Boutique. I'm part of a franchise. So I'm one of 72 owners that owns their own individual store, but being part of a larger franchise as if you were to own a Culver's. Obviously a little bit different type of franchise, but having that franchise overall view and business model behind me, and 30 plus years of success as a business, which was really, really exciting to go ahead and join. But once again, the good, bad, and ugly, not only going through COVID, having all of that, having a small store and a small community, but also being part of a franchise does have the good, bad, and ugly that comes along with it. There's definitely advantages and disadvantages. So I left my career in jewelry in January for 3 months, was here gutting out the store, I worked as my general contractor, worked with all the contractors that I hired in here and really built it from the ground up. This was an old Papa Murphy's shop. And we had all sorts of fun things like wash sinks in the walls, hand sinks, just crazy stuff here in the building, and did a whole renovation. And it was really a lot of fun to do. So I did get to see that from the ground up and really build it as my own. So that was quite exciting.
Diana, great job. You actually stole my next question of what did you do before owning your business? So fine jewelry sales, retail, anything else to add to the gamut?
So I first grew up at the age of 10 when we moved from Minnesota to Wisconsin. My mom had a little at-home floral shop and I started helping her. So doing a little math in our head, that would be now 46 years of being in sales and attempting to get out every year, but still keeping and getting sucked back in, it seems like. So I started out helping my mom with an at-home business. We've always been kind of entrepreneurial. After college, that kind of remorphed itself. Silk flowers and even fresh flowers weren't quite as popular. My mother got into herbs. So we actually grew a lot of herbs for chefs all throughout Minneapolis and St. Paul, farmers markets, things like that. And then everlastings, which we had over 400 different varieties of flowers that we grew on our 8.5-acre farm, and then went ahead and sold them, very similar to how our farmers market is, where now, we went out searching for people then that would want those types of things. And it was really fun to do. We had a wonderful time doing that. And then later in life, we actually owned our own small cafe. So I totally know the good, bad, and ugly of what Jim's gone through. It was definitely more my mother's passion than mine, but it was a lot of fun to do. And we really, really enjoyed that. And I've always, like I said, been in some sort of customer service, some sort of sales, and have really, really enjoyed that. No matter how much I try to sneak away, I get sucked back in because it's definitely where I'm passionate and where I feel the best.
And Jim, how about you? What does your background look like?
I was in the golf business for over 30 years. It was my first job ever. So I love the game of golf. Started at a golf course when I was 14 years old. Went to school at Stout. After Stout, I played on a golf team at Stout. After Stout, I got into the PGA apprenticeship program. Went through all that, became a PGA Class A member, and then served as a head golf professional or general manager or both at clubs throughout Wisconsin. I did it for over 30 years. I did some odds and ends in between jobs, but golf was my life for a long, long time. So a lot of those experiences, and obviously with golf tournaments you have dinners and banquets and things like that. So that got me, somewhat familiar with the restaurant business. But 30 years plus of that, it kind of, you were at the end of any job. If you do it for 30 years, you're going to reach kind of a saturation point. And we were looking for something else to do. We wanted to do our own thing. So most recently I was at Tanglewood Greens Golf Course in Menomonie here. And we were looking to get out of the golf game. And this opportunity, I don't know if it was an opportunity, but we knew that the previous owner was kind of nearing the end of his run. So we pursued it and worked out a deal. And then we leased the facility in 2020 and just took ownership, bought it on a land contract in just last September. So yeah, 30 years of golf got us in the restaurant business. So the hours were the same. We were seasonal hours in golf, if you will. Now it's year round, same kind of deal. Lots of hours, lots of work.
So 15-year-old Jim, did you ever think that you would have owned a supper club?
Well, no. I mean, you always thought of maybe owning a golf course. I mean, having been through that as your career, but you get a little bit later in life, and then you realize that if that were an option, how do you get out of it? How do you make some money along the way? That type of a thing. So, fiscally, if something breaks on the golf course, that's $50, $60, $70, $100,000 equipment or irrigation or something like that. In a small business like this, it might be 15, 20,000 at the most, for a major piece of equipment or something like that. So those were things that you might be able to absorb, if you're going into a business without a lot of capital, things like that, So that's what kind of pushed us away from golf. One of the things into this opportunity, and then the market itself. We knew Menomonie needed an adult place for dinner. Zanzibar, the other restaurant in town, had closed down. We're in a busy street. The place here is beautiful. So, it just kind of timing, I guess, if you will. So, yeah. So that's kind of the story.
So things just happen. And Diana, if I remember correctly, at 15, you wanted to be a lawyer.
Yes, I did.
So owning your own women's boutique was not exactly, your
Not at all.
dream as a young.
Yeah. as a teenager, that was my first thought. I really, really wanted to go into law. I don't know if I was just better at those debates than anyone else in school or what it was, but that's kind of where I first started leaning. And then when the choice came to actually go off to college, I started up for dentistry. And I thought maybe I wanted to be an oral surgeon or orthodontist, something along those lines, and specialize a little bit more. And I'll be honest, social life took over way more as a freshman than those classes did. And I went from a town of 1,000 people growing up in Spring Valley to my freshman class was 1,000, even at a small Christian college. And it was like, wow, this is overwhelming. I discovered I'm a more hands-on kinesthetic learner, and those long lectures were really, really boring for me. It definitely was not my thing. I switched to psychology and social work during my sophomore year, and there really is something called retail therapy. For all the guys out there, you just don't want to hear this about your wives and spending money, but I'll be honest, all day long you could spend $400 and go lay on a sofa and tell somebody your troubles, or you can come in here in a half hour, an hour, spend $400 and feel so much better, and you spent the same amount of money and you have something to show for it. So I feel like I'm still using a lot of my psychology. There's a lot of psychology in sales, as Jim knows, and just working with people, being in and around public. It is very, very much a game. I hate to say it. I certainly don't treat my customers that way. I treat them with love and respect and what have you. You treat someone the way you want to be treated and the experience you want to have. And Jim knows we frequently come to Wilson Creek. We absolutely love it. It's one of our favorites. And that's one of the reasons we come there is, it ties all back as far as customer service, I think. Just making someone feel really good. The little saying goes that maybe along the road, somebody won't necessarily remember years later the words that were said, but the way they made you feel. And when somebody makes you feel really good and you feel really comfortable, I enjoy spending my money and having fun spending it where people enjoy taking it from me and having fun with me. So having a great meal, a great, cocktail along the way, a fantastic dessert, having that whole experience and leaving at the end of that day, whether it be a restaurant or a shopping, what have you, when you feel really good about it. I think for me, not only enjoying that in my own life, but knowing that I can send someone out into the world, they've had that same great experience is really wonderful.
So Diana, you talked a little bit about like training. Obviously you were talking about schooling and different things. From what I know and what you've mentioned, neither of you have had college training, right? Or technical training in what you're doing right now. So what are the types of things that you do to help keep up with your industry? Are there specific trainings, activities, upskilling that you do?
That's a great question. And as college students are probably going to go watch back and listen to some of these things, and you're thinking, oh, this is my career path and this is where I want to go. I've had now, I think it was 38 young ladies that have worked for me from Stout in my 7 years of being here. The last one just got her full-time big girl career job today. So we're super excited about that. She graduated this May now with Stout. And it's just been really, really fun for them to learn and have the hands-on opportunity here. And you know what? You might end up doing something entirely different than what your degree was in 20 years from now, and that's absolutely okay. For me, as far as training and really keeping myself up to date with things, there's so many amazing books that are out there that you can do. One of my favorite is called Hug Your Customers, which is written from a gentleman who actually has a men's and ladies clothing store in Connecticut. And just kind of a really interesting take of just, once again, treating someone the way you want to be treated and just making them feel really, really special when they're there, as if they're the only customer that will ever walk through your doors, and that they're that incredible and that special, like they're royalty. And that to me was one of those things that really resonated. Years ago, I worked for Marshall Fields in Dallas, Texas, and Mr. Marshall Field back in the day wrote a book, Give the Lady What She Wants. I think every man should read that, but it's honestly the truth that, happy wife, happy life, but it really is. It's about that, and that's really the customer service aspect. But to your point too, Ashley, I'll be honest, I've learned so many things from the college students who've come through these doors, whether they've been in fashion merchandising, retail, that type of thing. Maybe they're here for a window display, and those are some of the classes they're taking. They're taking a merchandising class, what have you. It's been really fun because once again, I provide that hands-on opportunity. They come with all this amazing lecture and book knowledge, and the two of us working together has been really, really a great, I'll be honest, it's been a really wonderful experience for myself to be able to continue to grow.
Thank you for that. And Jim, how about you?
Well, as far as my position goes, I don't know if there's training for it. As far as my staff goes, it's kind of a second job kind of a career. You're a server and a student, or a server and a mom, or a server and a teacher. So that part of it, is not really trainable. A bartender, kind of the same way. A chef, maybe, but most of the chefs that you come across tend to start washing dishes. Then they work up the chain and they learn the skills that way. You can go to culinary school, that certainly helps, but there's no excuse or no substitute for experience when it comes to that. As far as my role as owner, I think you just have to have a little bit of a background in it, as like we did at the golf course. But I think the uniqueness and what draws me to it, or any of these young people, is the fact that you're going to be doing 100 different things in a day, and every day is different. And if that really turns you on, it doesn't matter what you do. It took me a long time. It took me till I was probably 50 years old to realize that golf was not who I was. I really enjoyed setting up a golf tournament or organizing the small business of a golf course, marketing, merchandising, sales, all that stuff. So I finally realized it didn't matter what it was. I could be selling widgets. I could be, running, maybe a boutique, maybe something online. It doesn't matter, but all of those skills can be applied to anything. So, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. It does take an immense amount of hard work and dedication to push through a lot of this stuff. But as far as training goes, even in golf, they had golf specific programs. I would push kids away from that. Be as broad as you can and find out what things that you really enjoy, and then figure out where you can apply those things. So I guess I'm kind of anti, specific, take all of those things and put it towards something that you enjoy. And I think through hard work, you will succeed, I guess.
And interrupt really fast. I think, Jim, you made a really, really great point there that I want to touch base on. The fact that you said every single day is different. And I think for both you and I, it is that way. You don't know who's going to walk in your door. It's a matter of chance what your next customer is going to be for yourself or for myself. You don't know what the scenario is going to be. You don't know where it's going to lead to. It's almost, and once again, forgive me for using the word game, but it's just like that. It's like you sit down and you're playing the game of life. You're playing the game of Monopoly, and you're not sure what that next their move's going to be. And then you have to counteract and make the right move as well, because in the end, you want your end result to be a happy customer and obviously a successful business, but you never know based on who and what's going to walk in that door, what's going to happen next. And even all the way sometimes down to deliveries. I order things so far in advance, 6 months in advance. And to be honest, everybody gets upset with me. I'm already ordering for next spring. My next fall was bought, oh goodness, gazillions of years ago, it felt like. And it's kind of comical because I about fell over. It was the first day of June, or forgive me, first day of summer, June 21st. And my first fall shipment arrived. And I myself about fell over and went, oh my gosh, it felt like our snow had just finally melted. So to Jim's point of never knowing on any given day what's going to happen, it's not, and nothing against somebody who's an accountant or whatever you do in life. And I know they have a little variety as well, but every day they're dealing with numbers. We just have so much variety. And I think for me, as being a person who likes to always be on the go and be busy and just have those kinds of excitement and things happening in my life, I really enjoy that. I hate to say it, probably is what really, really drives me and continues to keep me going.
Well, and it sounds like both of you have really invested in experiences. And I think that there's a catch-22 out there for folks who are either changing careers or emerging into a career or a job or a position. You don't have enough experience, but how do you get experience if nobody will give you the experience? It's just one of those times. So thank you both for taking on employees who are emerging and giving them that experience, because otherwise they're not going to be moving along their career path as quickly as they'd want to. So speaking of things, right, and getting out of your comfort zone sometimes as owners, you obviously have to learn a lot about banking, business financing, budgeting, financial forecasting. Tell us a little bit about your journey with all things money. What did you learn? What were some mistakes that you made? What were some celebrations that you had either early on in your ownership or where you're at now?
Go for it, Jim.
Well, I don't know yet. How do I say it? This is it's kind of a mystery. It's like unraveling as you go along here, obviously through any business, golf or, retail sales, anything like that, you need to charge certain margins. You need to understand what you need to cover your overhead costs, things like that. Got to pay yourself first, kind of a thing. And at the same time, you have to fit within what people are going to pay. We know that we have some really nice steaks here, for example. If we drive an hour and a half across the border, we could probably get twice as much for those steaks as we do here. So you have to find your own margins. You can't go textbook. What they used to tell you, your food cost should be 25, 30%. Well, yeah, maybe that's when they wrote the textbook 50 years ago. Retail for me, to Diana's career there, back in the day, it was pretty much a keystone markup, double your price of your cost. Well, that might be out the window. And with all the new vendors nowadays, you might be able to get more than that. Maybe some high-end stuff you'll get less than that, but the dollars, so it's all your individual game. So I think if you get into this, budgets are great. They're something you hope for. Until you get in it, you don't know it. You don't realize what the costs are. You can plan it out. I had it all planned out when we walked in here. Well, I could have, crumpled that up and threw it out the window. You got to go into this business with a little bit of a nest egg, and you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out where you're going to make some really good margins and some good monies, and then you're going to find costs that you never expected. So, and then you just got to play the game, as Diana says, within the game. And hopefully you make some money along the way. And for us, we're trying to build an asset that we can either lease or sell 10 or 12 or 15 years down the road. That's our game plan. As far as financing and things like that, yeah, I mean, that's what you can lean on your bankers and your close associates for, to help you navigate those waters. As much as you like to think that you're an expert in that thing, you can't. We're a jack of all trades and master of none. So when it comes to stuff like that, lawyers and bankers and financial people, you got to lean on those people, even sales reps and other chefs. And you're going to wear a lot of hats, but you're not great at anything. So if you're smart, your weaknesses and kind of lean on those people to help you out. So I guess that's where my monetary thoughts and stuff come from in regards to our business.
Jim, before I have Diana answer that question, did that ever bother you? I'm a type A personality. So finding people and surrounding myself with those topic experts, for the longest time, it drove me crazy. And you realize that you just have to let go at some point, and you can't master everything. Was that an evolution for you, or were you always just kind of laid back? Like, I'll ask them, they're the experts.
You have to roll with it, because you don't know how many people are coming through the door, be it at a golf course or a boutique or a restaurant. I mean, last Tuesday, for example, we had 70 plus people in here. The Tuesday before that, we had 17. So how can you budget anything like that? I just think you have to be ultra conservative, and I don't pay myself. I'm like the third highest paid person in my own business. That's what we have to do to keep the doors open here. Again, I'm betting on me and the facility for the long run. I don't need to make a lot of money right now. Now there's other businesses that might be a little different, where you can be a little more sure of what's coming down the road, but not here. I mean, if a cooler breaks down or a piece of equipment breaks down, how do you know when? How do you know? I mean, there are all kinds of ways to do that, but I don't think what people realize is how much time it takes to calculate that. I had a guy from Stout, for example, come in here. Well, I used to shop out all of my vendors. I had 4 different vendors, and I would each call them and get different pricing on all that. Okay. Well, that sounds great. And that's great in theory when all you're doing is teaching. But if you have to clean the bathrooms, mop the floors, make the food orders, write the schedule, all that stuff, you don't have time to do all that. So the theories that you're going to learn in school will give you some guidelines, but the reality of it is you don't know it till you're in it. And I think that's where I'm getting our soda fountain worked on here. The pump went out on that. There's another mystery, and so I just think you got to play it tight to the vest. And after a few years, you kind of know and can anticipate what's going on. Our first year was slow. Second year, we did this much. Last year, we did a little bit, maybe 20% more. And then we're like in that kind of same area right now. We can grow a little bit, but until we do something significantly different, I think we've kind of reached our saturation point. So now we could be a little more safe, but until it's fingers crossed and play it tight and then try to build a little bit at a time. These big dollars in our business is not coming through the door. It's different for every business though. You sell a piece of real estate or heavy equipment or something and you can make a windfall in one sale. Well, that's not us. We got to sell a lot of old fashions to pay for a bartender or whatever. So that's how we do it here.
And speaking of old fashions, you're on the registered supper club list, correct? In Wisconsin?
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
I think so. I believe you are.
Yeah.
So Diana, back to the question here, a little bit about your journey with financial forecasting, budgeting, how you learned to deal with kind of business banking.
I'm unfortunately an overspender. That is my first problem. And, you always heard or at least I was raised, my dad would always say, make sure you have at least, 6 to 8 weeks for that rainy day fund. You never knew what was going to happen. Well, unfortunately, when COVID hit, I only had about those 6 to 8 days or weeks of rainy day fund. And once again, I shared with you, I'm part of a franchise. One of the things that's a positive of our franchise is we do have a home office model. Our CEO then went ahead and took to Zoom. That's one of the great things I think that came out of Zoom, came out of COVID was Zoom and the way we had the opportunity to meet. And he did something called a 13-week forecast. That at that point was kind of what they anticipated. Everything would be shut down for those of us that were not considered essential. And we would have to go ahead and be able to kind of tighten our belts from there forward. We looked at anything and everything. How can you cut a little money from the music that you have to your electricity to, the room you're not in, turn off the lights, those types of things that we've always done. But it was really eye-opening for me. And to Jim's point, you can sit there and forecast anything, but you know what? Most of the time that you've taken all that time, it's going to get crumpled up and thrown out the window because something comes your way that totally sets you on a different path. To his point though, I'll be honest, great lawyer, great accountant. And I'm like you, type A personality. So sometimes being able to give up control is really, really hard. But at the end of the day, knowing and being able to admit that that person is far more knowledgeable than myself. And there are times where those dollars spent are better spent than me and my frustration of trying to go ahead and figure out my taxes, for example, payroll, anything like that. It's super easy. I simply say, this is how many hours that individual worked for the payroll period. And my payroll is magically delivered here in my store. And that's worth every penny to me. So I appreciate those kinds of things. I don't have to figure out any of that. And if I was ever to get audited, I know that I'm taken care of. It makes it really, really easy peasy. So there are times to go ahead, I think, and once again, swallow our pride sometimes, realize that that's not necessarily our strength and to lean on those people that are the experts. But to Jim's point too, I'll be honest, as a small business owner, you never know. Like he was saying, 17 one week, 70 the next. I mean, at some point, obviously you max out, you only have so many seats and you can only turn and burn a guest out of your kitchen so quickly. And I can only stuff so many people in here with 4 fitting rooms and what have you. I'd love to say a bus would drive up and 100 ladies would pop off the bus and we'll figure out a way to handle it. But in most cases, I'll give you an example. January and February for us, weather sucked. It absolutely did. January and February was just beyond disgusting. I do a little tracker to kind of see, what the weather's like and look from year to year as far as scheduling and see how many guests come in each hour, what kind of ratio I'm turning as far as sales are concerned, that type of thing, and looking at my overall sales for the day. So I can not only forecast in scheduling, but maybe the next event that I'm going to run or what have you. In January and February, keep in mind, it's a short month. It's not a 30-day month. So we didn't even have 60 days. We had 15 days that were impacted by weather. So more than 25% of our days during those months were impacted by weather, where we had no internet. We had no possibility of even getting here because there was 18 inches of snow, those types of things. So to be down those months, I wasn't happy about it, but you're down a little bit. It's okay. So, the old analogy of making hay while the sun shines, you had nicer weather in March. Let's make the most of it. We had great May. Let's make the most of it. June, now July, I'm gaining ground from those 2 months that really were a little bit quieter and softer as far as business. And we're really ramping that up. But as you know, for me, and Jim, I think you do a great job with social media as well, utilizing our social media, whether it be a Facebook, an Instagram post, anything along those lines. I do a few more live videos than yourselves, but having those things to really go ahead and let people within our community or even people from afar, let them know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. People really enjoy that. And they get pretty excited about that. And it's amazing how that can really drive sales.
So obviously there are challenges owning your own business, but what would you say are a few things that are rewarding or that you enjoy about working for yourself?
I know Jim and we're going to totally both agree on this one. It's certainly not the great hours that we have. The 9 to 5 banker hours are not why we do it.
No, yeah, I mean, if you can fulfill, it's nice to get good comments. It sucks to get bad comments, but you're going to get them anyways. You got to keep your eye on the prize. You got to, when you're doing the right things, people will let you know. People will come back, support you. The old 80-20 rule, if you can keep that going, get more 5-star reviews than 1-star reviews, it's not going to be perfect. You can't please everybody, but you just got to, take pride in ownership and working hard, because it's a lost skill set nowadays. The reason, to me, they say most businesses go out of business within 3 years. It's not so much the business. I don't think people realize how much work it takes and how many, we're only open from 5 to 9, but I'm here 80 hours a week. Okay. So that's what it takes. And you can talk about delegating and this and that, but only if you have a ton of money rolling through the door is that a possibility. And if you want it done properly, it's not going to happen unless you're there. And on top of things, people won't support you. They support Diana's business because of her. They come to see her. They don't come to see her college staff. And they're great kids, and I need to do this in my business more. I need to get out in front of the people more. But they come to support you, and that's and you've got to put on that smiley face and do all that kind of stuff. But so you got to take pride in that and be the face of your place, and just people know that when you put in that effort. So take pride in that, because that's what's going to get you over the end. And you got to be an eternal optimist in this kind of business or any business, and then keep your eyes on the prize, because it's going to suck a lot. It's going to be hard, but the sun comes up tomorrow. Work hard and get through that day. And again, keep to me, it's building your business. And that, for me now at 56 years old, and I know I need to be here 10 or 12 more years, I constantly think of how I can get out. What is my exit strategy? Same with Diana and hers. And I know she's a franchisee that's coming up. You got to think of the big picture.
We had a comment in the meeting chat here about bankers hours not being 9 to 5, but I think that speaks really to what you just talked about, Jim, and Diana. I know you're big on this. It's really relationships, right? That's what That's what banking is. That's what customer service is. That's what hospitality is, tourism and retail. It's building those relationships. And that's something that you're able to do. And you have to prioritize if you want successful business.
I think that's part of the, and I was just picking on Nick, the fact that he was on and I knew that. One of the things too, and Jim made a very good point as far as this is concerned, is it's hard work, it's work ethic. And I'm guessing, Jim, that your mom and dad, similar to mine, that was instilled in us. It was one of those scenarios where, I saw it modeled. And that was the belief that we had as a family is we're going to work really, really hard so we can play hard when we do have those times off, whether it be to go get a Dairy Queen at the end of the day or whatever that reward may be. We mow lawn for 13, 14 hours and plant the garden and work really hard so you can have that root your float, those types of things. And Jim and Kim, they had the opportunity, I know last month, to sneak away to Cancun for vacation in Mexico. We just had the opportunity, thus the super red that I am, taking the convertible out to the Black Hills for a few days on a getaway. When you have those chances, you need to do that. But to Jim's point, 100%, when I first started here, I had a young lady who was a former business owner here in our community. And she said, you know what? She says, I'm so thankful that you're a business owner who, when I come into the store, you're there. She said, it's really, really impactful. She said, when my husband and I started our business, she said it was really kind of comical. She said, we decided to take one night off, and it was in the restaurant business. They went over to visit friends of theirs in Minnesota who also had a restaurant. Well, just so happened that couple left their restaurant that night to come all the way over here to Menomonie to visit that couple. They were at each other's restaurants, going to see each other, but didn't have that communication in advance. And she said, it wasn't that they didn't enjoy their time while they were there, but they wanted to go to see that other couple. And, it's relationship building. And that's the reason why I'm here. And I'll be honest, I really missed I'm in my store for 5 days, and coming back today was really fun to be able to see who was going to come through the door, who is that next customer going to be, and how can I go ahead and make their day special. And it's all about relationships, and especially in a small community. I think if we were in Minneapolis, Jim, it would be an entirely different scenario. Not that you wouldn't have your regulars. You'd maybe have 20% regulars and 80% a revolving door. But in our small community, I think we have that 80% regulars and maybe a 20% revolving door, if even that high.
So even with small business, you have staff. Obviously, both of you have staff. Staff are wonderful and they're incredibly helpful, but they can also be incredibly challenging. Can you give some advice to our listeners about what it's like managing staff, and maybe some coaching on what it was like when you had to let a staff go? What are your words of wisdom?
Oh,
we do get to be our own HR.
yeah, which is scary. That is scary. Coaching is it's hard. My wife says people don't think like you, which is true. So they're not going to think the way you do. So you have to suck it up and deal with that, for one thing. And I want them all to succeed. I want us all to win. I want to help them be as the best version of themselves that they can be, because it helps me and helps them, helps the customer. Everybody can win in that scenario. You can tell when it's not. What doesn't work, I'll tell you right away, what doesn't work for us is if you're me first. If it's about you and getting your tips or your hours or only doing what you want, you won't last. So, we look for people that this isn't their full-time job. I mean, we only have a couple of full-time positions here. Everybody else is part-time. We want you to be a side hustle for you, so you can relate to people that way. Being part of a team and an athletic background is huge. Me first does not cut it. It does not cut it, because it shows through, and you won't get support from your other teammates here or your customer. It just doesn't work. As far as letting people go, I don't play that. They weed themselves out for the most part, and the more times they ask for time off and stuff like that, or it's just not working, hey, I just tell them, this is obviously is not working for you. It's not working for us here. It's probably best that we just part our ways right here. To Diana's point, we're our own HR. To me, that's scary in the days of litigation and stuff. If people, maybe we got to do a better job at covering our tail with a work agreement or something. I'm old school, where I believe if it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah, it's maybe we are playing with fire there a little bit. I hope not. We're I'm a transient. I've always thought of any business as being a transient employee, meaning I don't want you to be here for life, because if you are, I haven't lifted you up to be the best version of you. Maybe we can learn something along the way and we help each other, and that's great. But if you're constantly are going to be here forever, then that says a lot poorly on me and maybe a little bit on you, that you don't have that ambition that we need out of people to be the best version of themselves. So coaching thing is huge. And I mean, we could talk for hours on that, on work ethics and things like that. I mean, that's, that's society right there. And I don't have time for that, but it's a big deal. And it's getting more difficult to find the people that any business needs. And it's not necessarily, it's not the business owner's fault, I don't think. It's where they're coming from, what they're learning, everything they're seeing outside in the real world is not the real world. The real world is working hard and getting ahead and doing the right thing. There's no shortcuts. Discipline is your shortcut. That's it. So again, we can go on and on and on about all that stuff, but you try to make them the best version of themselves. If you can, everybody wins. If they're selfish, they don't want to do that, then it doesn't work out for anybody.
That very same thing here, Jim, and it's one of those scenarios. What I've noticed as far as my college girls are concerned, and I haven't had a young gentleman come and work for me, so forgive me, I'm not trying to be biased on that, but my young ladies that I've had, it's been a really wonderful experience to be able to take them to that next level, to watch them grow. I mean, it's heartbreaking. I stand here and cry when they've handed me my keys and they're walking out the door for the very, very last time, and I know we're not going to see them again because they have grown to that next level. And we tease them, we call it their big girl job, but when they've had that opportunity and they've worked so hard for something with their education and they find that next career path, I think it's super exciting. And for us, we really celebrate that. And, your point as far as HR is concerned, it is a little bit scary. There's times I feel like if it's a scenario where with an employee, I have to document where they're running late and I'm having to look at a time clock and see, if they're not on time, or there's disciplinary types of things where I'm having to go ahead and document those kinds of things and having those conversations, then they probably weren't the right hire to begin with. And thank goodness I've had so few of those in my almost 7.5 years here, and to Jim's point, they kind of weed themselves out. They know what the expectations are. They know the level that we expect. But at the same token, I'm going to say this politely, I think we pay very well in return. Lots of different benefits along the way. My team, when we're exceeding and we're doing really, really great, I mean, for us, it's free clothes, it's free jewelry. They love those kinds of things along with raises. So it's financial ways that I go ahead and reward them, but it's also through where we go out to dinner at like Wilson Creek, where we had our holiday party, those types of things, and we have a good time and we really enjoy that. Which, Ashley, I read your chat of what came through today as far as employers and ways that they can really benefit their employees. I think it was 10 ways that employees are wanting to go ahead and feel like they're getting more out of their jobs and their careers these days. And those were types of rewards, going for a walk with your employees and really getting to know them. What's important to them along the way, having a little social time with them, maybe having some flexibility of work from home. Obviously, both of our businesses are not work from home businesses. So that's not going to be an option to take your laptop and try to help a customer and make sure that they have a great old fashioned. But at the end of the day, we can find other ways to really reward them and to make sure that they are on that next journey for where they want to succeed and where they see their life going. However, I'm going to say this, don't ever let Christian go. I enjoy seeing him at the bar and he always makes great, fun martinis. So
he's
don't
awesome.
go anywhere.
He's awesome. And I was going to say one more thing. The biggest challenge that we face, and I'm sure a lot of I guess, specialty businesses face is when you are, I hate to say the term, but you're held hostage by your employees. There's not a lot of skilled chefs or skilled bartenders or skilled craftsmen out there, so that if you do get, somebody that's not playing the way they need to play, you just can't get rid of them, because then that affects your business, and then it affects your sales, and then so that is a huge challenge, and I'd like to know how some of these other businesses handle that, because it's bad. There's not an infinite number of replacements out there, so you got to play the game whether you like it or not, where other employees like it or not. If you have a couple that you lean your business on, it's a difficult road. And I think we're not alone in that in the food service industry, but I'm sure there's other businesses too that are faced with some of those challenges. And that's a big one. That is a big one, because it's hard to hold standards and things like that if you can't hold everybody accountable. But unfortunately, if your star player, it's not towing it and you can't replace that star player, that's a huge challenge. So.
Well, and ideally, it's nice if you can always kind of have somebody in your pipeline and be ready.
Yeah.
You have somebody waiting.
Oh, ideally, yeah.
I mean, that's ideal, perfect world. So you're not hiring out of desperation, and you have someone in your pipeline that you've been talking to, and you have, they're waiting for, I hate to say it, they're waiting for an employee to leave so that they can fill that position. I mean, that would be a wonderful place to be at, but that doesn't always happen. And to your point, as far as a small business is concerned, we just work some really crazy hours too. And I got an application in today, and she sounded like a lovely individual, but doesn't want to work any nights. Well, I don't know how late into nights. I need to ask more questions, but I'm only open till 6 o'clock. So it's not terribly late. Every now and then we'll do a special event, maybe till 8 o'clock at night. So it's not terribly late, but for you, Friday, Saturday night, your people are working till sometimes 11 o'clock at night. And if you have an employee who's only wanting to go ahead and work, a simple hours or more limited in their hours, it makes it really tough, because you need that flexibility.
Yep.
So who do you lean in on for resources? So like when you started in this business, obviously there's licensing and sales tax information and all the things, right? Who do you lean into for that information? Who's your resource?
Well, for me, go ahead.
Go ahead.
For me, it was a little bit easier because of the fact that I came on with a franchise, and having owned businesses previous, I kind of knew the ins and outs of that, and having been involved, to your point, licensing, what have you. The biggest decision, I think, and I believe, Jim, you said you were incorporated. I chose to be an LLC. So that's another one of those scenarios, sitting down and talking to a lawyer or a tax person to determine what your best avenue would be based on what size of business you are, what type of business you are, whether you want to be an S Corp or you want to be an LLC or you want to be incorporated, those types of things. There's so many different variables there. And once again, knowing what your strengths are and knowing where you need to go ahead and have somebody, to be your partner in crime. That's where my lawyer and my accountant, those two hand in hand, were really fantastic to sit down. And that was money well spent. The other person I would say to make sure that you have in your pipeline is a financial advisor. That has been really, really magnificent as well, because there are times perhaps where you have a little extra cash fund and maybe you can make an investment with that. And that would be something that you have in that kiddie pool if you get to that point, which is really, really nice to have, where you can be making those investments to be able to be there for your future. That's a great plan as well. Jim and I, he just shared his age. I'm turning 56 this year now in August. So I'm a month and a half behind you. And it's one of those scenarios where we're looking at an exit plan. Do I want to work another 20 years? Lord willing, I would love to, but not at an 80-hour capacity. So you have to weigh out all those options. So once again, finding some people in your pipeline, once again, for myself being part of a franchise, that made it pretty easy as well to have some of those individuals. But I would say right away, as far as a lawyer is concerned, and the Small Business Administration is amazing. There's so much of information out there. Ashley, I started obviously previous to you coming on with the chamber, but the chamber now, you have gotten into that point yourself and your staff where you're really a wealth of information for anyone that's wanting to go ahead and get started as well. But I think finding your partners in crime, once again, your lawyers, your accountants, your financial advisors, those types of things to really help you to make the best decisions are a must.
I think too, I agree with all of that. I think, when you do face challenges in your business, it's great to reach out to other people in your business. Like for me, I'll reach out to old friends that were restaurant owners and country club managers and things like that. Salespeople are invaluable with their knowledge of other facilities. And, when people reached out to me about Tanglewood, I'd love to help, and any other business. It's nice to be asked your opinion and thoughts on things when you've got the experience, and most people will share that with you, and it makes them feel good to be asked their opinion and their experience and their knowledge, as well as, it saves you a lot. You're not going to find it all online. They'll give you real world examples of how to solve that problem. And go to those people. There's no shame in that at all. You don't know it all. So, and like I said, people like to people like to brag a little bit about the successes that they've had and experiences that they've had, and they'll help you out. So, yes, you do need the tax and law and all that stuff. But when it gets into your path or your industry, reach out, because and they don't expect to be paid. Their payment is the gratification of helping you out. So
how coachable do you need to be as a business owner? You yourself, how coachable do you need to be?
Go ahead, Diana.
I think, to be honest, there's days that Chad reminds me, thank goodness you do own your own business, because he doesn't think I can take any other insight. But to Jim's point, having partners to be able to bounce ideas off and what have you, I feel in most cases I'm pretty teachable, trainable. I'm that kind of person who always want to learn something new. And for my industry, it's a little bit different as far as Jim obviously can add a variety of different things to a menu. You have a summer menu, a winter menu, those kinds of things, try some new items. For myself, it's ever changing as far as fashion and trends, which is really exciting. I have the opportunity, I'm actually going to Magic this year in August. I swore off Vegas in August because it's 113 degrees and said I'd never do it again after I about died 3 years ago, but I'm going back. And I'm looking forward to it because Maroon 5 is playing. I just have to throw that in. So I have a little date with Adam Levine that Saturday night. So that's going to make it all worthwhile. But it's one of those scenarios where having different people in the industry. So to Jim's point, I get the opportunity to meet with vendors. I have names on my clothes: Clara Sunwoo, Ariella, Charlie B, Alon. Those are real individuals who exist. I'll have the opportunity to meet with those individuals. So for me, gathering information from them and finding out what the latest trends are, the reason why they designed something, and being able to share that with my customer is really, really important. So from that aspect, I love it. The other thing with being a franchise is we do weekly meetings, which is really kind of exciting. Sometimes it's a product focus, trend focus, what have you. So we have those kinds of online trainings and continuous improvement for ourselves, even amongst our franchise, which is really, really exciting. Sometimes we'll each go ahead and speak as business owners ourselves and share, once again, the good, bad, and ugly, things that we've learned along the way. But it's been really, really nice. Sometimes it's nice to know that someone else has gone down that same rabbit hole you have and how they've pulled themselves back, so that maybe you don't make that same mistake as you're headed there, or vice versa. They can go ahead, and to Jim's point, they had an amazing success and here's how they did it. And they want to brag about it because it worked so well. Well, if maybe that happened in Fargo, North Dakota, and I can bring that same thing here to Menomonie and make it a success for myself as well, I enjoy those types of things. But I'll be honest, being your own business owner is kind of nice, because at the end of the day, I look at it this way: it's my money. So, I get the girls' insight. Don't get me wrong. We have a new catalog that just came out from Papillon. So everybody went through and marked what they really loved, what have you. But at the end of the day, I'll challenge them and say, okay, name me 3 customers that you've met who will actually buy and wear that. If we can't think of somebody in our store who is going to buy and wear this, I don't want to spend money on it. I need to be able to know my customer well enough to bring something in, because it is my money and it's a lot of money being spent. And, every season, if I'm bringing in $100,000 worth of new clothing, that's a big investment. And I need to make sure that I'm getting a return on that investment. And it's usually at about a 50%, Jim. That's it for us, for that margin. But when I get higher margin, I'm pretty excited about it. But overall, a 50% margin for us, we're pretty thrilled.
As far as being coachable goes, you have to take in as much information as you can. what makes sense. But I think at the end of the day, part of the gratification and part of your success is staying true to your vision and what you see, what will work. Yeah, you should do this. You should do that. You should have this on your menu. You should carry this line of clothing. Well, yeah, that's fine. But if you play that game, you'll be spending money and trying things with no substance to it, and it'll be a wash because it takes away from your vision and your true path or where you're going to go or what your theme or culture is. So yes, you can coachability is great if you have an open mind to stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, too, what is gratifying in this is doing your thing. And, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm going to go here. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to make everybody happy, you won't make anybody happy. So, you just got to do your own thing. And through experience and trials and tribulations, you got to stay the course. And hopefully that pans out at the end. So you'll know sooner or later.
And you learn from yourself.
That's right. Yeah.
So we have about 2 minutes left. So my last question for each of you is, what is one piece of advice that you would go back and give yourself at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey?
Actually, to be honest with you, because I've worked the same kind of hours, be it for somebody else or for myself. If you want success, it's you and a family and all that, you better pick the right partner to partner with on this. So I was blessed for my wife that she understood golf in 12 and 16-hour days. And as much as she didn't like it, I was blessed that she could deal with it. And I know you can't predict that kind of a thing, but if you want that life, you better work hard at finding that person that will support you. And just, I guess the second thing is, it's just hard work. People, there is no shortcuts in this. And if you want to get really good, really fast at any business or anything in life, to me, and it's my weak point, is discipline. If you are disciplined, an extremely disciplined person, that is the shortest shortcut to success. We tend to wander, or not disciplined in our money, or not disciplined in our hours, or not disciplined with our family or our physical, well-being, all those things. It will lead to distractions, not getting to where you want to be as fast as you can. So if you're going to be in business, find the right partner and work on your discipline from day one. If you have those two things, I think you can win. It's just know it's hard work.
I love that, Jim. And to piggyback off that, I'll be honest, many people probably knew this. I unfortunately went through divorce because of burnout and working way too many hours and what have you, with my previous career. And it was one of those scenarios, a 90-hour work week. And I wasn't blessed with kids. So I thought, well, I can just go ahead and pour myself into my job. But unfortunately, I didn't make that focus for a mate and a family that way. And not always necessarily for time with my siblings and my parents either. And it was one of those scenarios after losing my dad 16 years ago and going through a divorce shortly thereafter. That to me was a big wake-up call of having, it's okay to work hard and it's okay to work for yourself, but you have to have a little bit of balance and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So taking those vacations and time away, making sure that you're taking that time to sit down and have a family dinner, go to church together, whatever it may be that's important, getting a golf game in, those types of things. And yes, we do still want our focus to be on our store, on our business, and that success along the way, but that it's okay to give yourself that opportunity to have a little me time, to have a quiet time with a book or a good glass of wine at the end of the day to wind down, whatever it would be, to make sure that you do still have a little bit of balance in your life. And once again, you can't replace those that are around you. Unfortunately, they can walk away from you, but surrounding yourself with people that do understand what it is you're going through and making sure that they appreciate and you appreciate how much that they're there for you is definitely a good balance.
Well, thank you both so very much for sharing your story and your journey with us today. We are at the end of our time. It flies by every single time, but we definitely appreciate it. Make sure that if you listen to this, stop by Mainstream Boutique and Wilson Creek Inn, check them out. Introduce yourself to Jim and Diana. Thanks again for joining us today for Entrepreneurs in Action. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.